I'm starting to question everything I've been taught about sleeping bags.
If you have bought a sleeping bag any time in the last 75 years, you've had one of two choices.
Down bag or a synthetic?
People claim synthetic bags are better because they can still insulate when wet, but if you saw my video a few weeks back where I slept in a wet down bag, that claim isn't exactly holding water. And now I'm back at it again, this time putting synthetic and down head to head to find out once and for all which one really is the best. And to top it off, I'm gonna spend another night in a wet sleeping bag, this time fully synthetic.
I'm a little worried about this one. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is this. As I've said before, this is the standard test to measure down fill power. I used it in my last video to show you how down can continue to loft even when wet. It basically works by adding a very specific amount of down and then measuring how much it lofts under a precisely weighted disc.
Loft is a way that almost all insulation works, whether it's down or synthetic. Basically, everything other than Mylar film uses loft to trap air pockets and maintain warmth. So no matter what insulation you're using, the thicker, the better.
This is 19 grams of 800 fill down insulation, and this is the exact same weight of synthetic insulation. And as you can see, there is a big difference.
And according to most people I've talked to, that is the biggest and possibly the only benefit of down. It's incredibly warm for its weight, so much so that we've been trying to synthesize it for decades but can't even get close.
Proponents of synthetics say that it doesn't matter if it weighs more or it's less efficient, it's worth it because if it gets wet, it has superior performance. With some people going so far as to say you should never carry down because if it gets wet, your life could be at stake.
But I think I made a pretty good case why that's not reality by sleeping in a wet down bag in near freezing temperatures. Now I want to find out how synthetic performs in the same conditions, and I'll be testing custom-made identical quilts from Zimbivy thanks to their financial support of my research. The only difference is one is down and one is synthetic.
Okay, first things first, I want to see how much water synthetic will soak up when dunked under the water. This is about how much your bag will be compressed in your pack during a water crossing, and I did this exact same test with down and it only soaked up about an ounce of water. Okay, compressed synthetic bag, average compression going in the water. Now, with synthetic insulation, we get about 2 ounces of water, which is not a lot, but it is more than down under the exact same conditions.
But what really surprised me was when I put a lightly compressed synthetic quilt in my rain chamber for 6 hours. In my last video, we learned fully compressed down doesn't take on water, and lightly compressed down will resist water, even in extreme conditions like 6 hours of sustained rain.
My loosely compressed down quilt soaked up about 24 ounces of water. Out of curiosity, I ran it again, completely uncompressed, just loosely shoved down in the bottom of my pack, no rain cover, no dry sack, frankly unrealistic conditions, and it soaked up almost 3 times that, 76 ounces of water. But when I ran the lightly compressed synthetic quilt in a different compression stuff sack, only because synthetic is bulkier than down, it soaked up 200 ounces or 1.5 gallons of water. But this is the problem I see here. Down is naturally hydrophobic. Even if I try to stir it down into the water, it naturally wants to float back up to the top. It takes a tremendous amount of water and agitation to fully compromise down. But if I do the same thing with the synthetic insulation, it soaks up the water almost like a sponge.
But there are insulations that will keep you warm even when wet, and that is the overall consensus with synthetic insulation. So I ran a few freezer tests to see how it performs when wet. I tested both a mini down quilt and a mini synthetic quilt and slowly added 3 parts water to 1 part insulation incrementally until I got up to 15 parts water to 1 part insulation. And synthetic was doing okay. At 3 parts water, it lost 20% of its warmth and then lost another 17% at 6 parts water. It started to level out around 9 parts water with a total reduction of 47% warmth with no further loss all the way up to 15 parts water to 1 part insulation. But the kicker, the down did on average 8% better at each step of the way, and it too seemed to level out from 9 to 15 parts water.
Okay, so now it's time for the ultimate test. Just like I did with the down, I'm gonna take the synthetic quilt, stick it in the creek, sleep in it tonight to see which one does better when wet.
Because it's early August, we have come up above tree line in hopes of seeing near freezing temperatures. The overnight low is forecast at 38 degrees Fahrenheit, which should be cold enough to get a good test of this quilt.
So other than the insulation that's inside this quilt, it is exactly identical to the one that I slept in my last video. I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in the creek, and I'm gonna weigh it again to see how much water it has taken on. This is one of the dumbest things I do on this channel. Here we go, in the water. Synthetic quilt. Okay, we are just under 50 ounces, 49. So we started at 37. So we got about 10 ounces of water in this quilt right now. We had about 20 in the down quilt. So let's go ahead and dunk it again, see if we can get 10 more ounces of water in this. Part of the problem we have here is because we're up so high in elevation, chasing the cold temperatures, we don't have a very deep creek. Okay. We are at 63.7 ounces. And so that is about 25 ounces of water or so. I think that's probably adequate. Let's go stick this in the tent, and then I'm gonna get inside it. Okay, now I'm gonna get in. I'm gonna go ahead and change into my long john layer. That's going to keep me from just being nude, and it's going to be more consistent with ISO and EN testing standards, where in those tests they put the dummy inside one full layer of clothing.
All the advice I've heard since I first started backpacking says synthetic insulation is what you want in a situation like this, but something about this particular test was making me anxious.
I'm a little worried about this one. Like when we did the down, there was never a point where I was worried. But this is worrying me a little bit. I'm assuming that once I get in it, maybe I can warm up my body heat. I'm sure that the cold creek water has just made the quilt cold. And so if it's insulating at all, it's insulating to keep the cold in. My body's gonna have to warm it up to make it start insulating to keep heat. I kind of find myself not wanting to get underneath it fully, just because my legs are so cold right now. Okay, but I'm gonna do it. Okay, that's not so bad.
When you add it all up, everything should have been working in favor of the synthetic quilt. The late summer conditions producing milder temperatures, synthetic's reputation for handling moisture, to the fact that I'd already survived a night in a wet quilt. And as I settled in, I really thought everything would be fine.
Okay, so I've been in the wet bag for about 15-20 minutes now, and I think I've gotten acclimated, and it's not too bad. I'm actually really surprised at how much these bags can take on water and still do their job.
But as the night went on, I began to realize something was wrong.
It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. It's around 44 degrees outside. I am not in danger, but I am not having a good time. I'm not comfortable. I'm definitely cold, and I can feel cold getting in the quilt somewhere. There's been a few times that I've thought, okay, I've made my point. Can I stop now? And that tells me that the quilt's not doing what it needs to be doing. Well, I guess you can look at that two different ways. It is doing what it needs to be doing. It's keeping me alive. I'm not shivering. I'm not hypothermic. I'm just uncomfortable. and having trouble sleeping and just wishing that I wasn't wet. I do not remember thinking or feeling this way at all with the down quilt. And so 1 o'clock in the morning still feels really early. And I'm just wishing the night was over.
In the end, the synthetic quilt did its job and kept me alive, which is good news, but it isn't the point of this video. I wanted to see how synthetic performed in comparison to down, and every single metric I measured, it performed worse. I didn't have much time to talk about it in the video, but I even ran some dry time tests, and down dried almost 2 times faster than synthetic. Now, there were several factors that I just couldn't test for. For instance, we were in central Colorado in a fairly dry climate. Had it been more humid, or had the dew point been higher, or had overnight temperatures been colder, who knows how these quilts would have performed. And I didn't test at all for condensation forming inside the quilts, which could be a contributing factor to an installation's success or failure. All I can speak to is my own experience testing both synthetic and down in similar conditions. And all that said, it really makes me wonder, where did we learn the synthetic does better when wet? Was it just marketing hype that somehow became law in the mind of outdoor enthusiasts, or am I just not testing the right conditions? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you to Zenbivy for financially supporting this video. I really could not do this research without them. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and do all those other things. And as always, thanks for watching. Okay, I'm really curious to see just how wet it is, how much it dried overnight. And so I'm gonna weigh it here. It is, it's pretty dry. So I think when we first dunked it in the creek last night, it was weighing about 37 ounces, and right now we are at 40.9. Synthetic quilt did all right.